Novak Djokovic, the man with 24 Grand Slam titles, a $25 million endorsement empire, and the most calculated business mind in tennis history, just aligned himself with Eala, a 20-year-old Filipina who, barely 12 months ago, was sitting at world number 140. A young woman who beat Iga Swiatek, defeated Madison, stormed to world number 31, and turned an entire nation of 115 million people into the most passionate tennis fan base on the planet. 2 names, 2 worlds, 1 announcement. And the moment it dropped, the sport changed forever. But here is what nobody is talking about yet. Behind the celebration, behind the global hype, something far bigger is unfolding. Brands are scrambling, contracts are being reviewed, agents are making emergency calls, because this partnership is not just a deal, it is a declaration. Stay with this till the very end, because the final chapter of this story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about tennis, money, and power.
Let us understand exactly who these 2 people are, because the collision of their worlds did not happen by accident. Novak Djokovic. Born in Belgrade, Serbia, 1987, a boy who learned to play tennis in a restaurant because his family could not afford a proper facility. A child who watched wars unfold outside his window while dreaming of Wimbledon. That child grew into the most decorated tennis player in the history of the sport. 24 Grand Slam titles, a record 10 Australian Open crowns, over 400 weeks at world number 1, more weeks at the summit than any human being who has ever picked up a racket. But here is what separates Djokovic from every other champion. He did not just dominate tennis, he built an empire around it. His sponsor portfolio reads like a luxury almanac. Head Rackets since 2001, Lacoste Apparel since 2017, Asics Footwear since 2018, Hublot Watches from 2021, Waterdrop from 2023, Amman Hospitality from 2024, Qatar Airways from 2024, and in June 2025, Danish powerhouse Joe and the Juice, where Djokovic became both a shareholder and a health and wellness ambassador. Forbes confirmed he pulled in $25 million in endorsements alone over the 12 months through August 2025. Then there is SILA, his own supplement brand, 10 years in development, backed by over 300 scientific evaluations, built on the same nutritional philosophy that he credits for his extraordinary longevity. SILA is not just a product, it is Djokovic's vision for what elite performance looks like beyond the court. It debuted in the United States and Europe in early 2025, and it immediately became one of the most talked about athlete wellness brands in the world. Now, shift your gaze, because the other half of the story is just as extraordinary. Alexandra Maniego Eala, born May 23, 2005, in Quezon City, Philippines, daughter of a businessman and a former national swimmer who earned a bronze medal at the 1985 Southeast Asian Games. A girl who arrived at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca at just 13 years old, carrying nothing but talent and an unshakable belief that she belonged at the top. She proved it immediately. In 2020, she won the Australian Open Junior Doubles title. In 2021, she claimed Roland Garros Junior Doubles. In 2022, she made history, becoming the first Filipino ever to win a Grand Slam junior singles title at the US Open. But that was just the beginning. In 2025, she entered the Miami Open at world number 140 as a wild card. What followed was the kind of week that rewrites careers. She defeated Madison, the Australian Open champion. Then she took down Iga Swiatek, the 5-time Grand Slam winner, ranked world number 2. She became the first Filipino to reach a WTA 1000 semifinal, the first to break into the WTA Top 100, the first to win a Grand Slam singles main draw match. She won the Guadalajara WTA 125 title. She reached the Eastbourne final. By November 2025, she finished the year at world number 50. In 2026, she kept accelerating. Auckland semifinals, Dubai quarterfinals, a victory over Jasmine Paolini, world number 8, a 3-set battle with Coco Gauff on the grandest stage. By February 23, 2026, she stood at a career-high world number 31, the highest-ranked Filipino woman in the entire history of the WTA Tour, which dates back to 1975. Coco Gauff herself said it publicly after their Dubai match. Eala is bringing a demographic to tennis that nobody has ever reached before. Two extraordinary trajectories, one historic crossroads, and now a partnership that is shaking every corner of the sport. Still here? Good. Because what triggered this announcement is more calculated and more controversial than anything you've seen in tennis off the court.
Nothing about the collision of Djokovic and Eala happened overnight, but there was a defining moment where the dots began connecting and the sport started paying close attention. Cast your mind back to January 2026, Australian Open season, Melbourne, the city that Djokovic owns more than any other on the tennis calendar. 10 titles, a decade of dominance on that blue hardcourt. Even in the twilight of his career, his presence at Melbourne Park commands the room. At the same time, something unprecedented was happening on the outer courts. Alex Eala, making her Australian Open main draw debut, became the most talked about player at the entire tournament, despite losing in the first round. Filipinos flew in from across Southeast Asia. They packed the stands for her practice sessions. They crowded outside Court 6 with handmade banners and Philippine flags the size of bedsheets. The atmosphere around her matches rivaled the electric energy of the main arena. Inside the tournament, word spread quickly. Players were talking about it, coaches were talking about it, and the ATP's most commercially astute mind, Novak Djokovic, was paying very close attention. Djokovic, who had recently exited the Professional Tennis Players Association he co-founded over governance concerns, was in a period of strategic realignment. He had publicly stated that he wanted to contribute to tennis in ways reflecting his principles and integrity. His wellness portfolio, SILA, Joe and the Juice, Waterdrop, Aman, was expanding aggressively. He was positioning for post-career life with the precision of a chess grandmaster. And here was Alex Eala, generating the kind of genuine, passionate, multicultural fan eruption that no marketing budget on earth could manufacture. A young woman carrying the pride of 115 million Filipinos into every match. A player whose story resonated not just in Manila, but across Southeast Asia, Latin America, and every corner of the globe where young women of color dare to dream at the highest level. Djokovic recognized it instantly. This was not just a talented athlete. This was a cultural phenomenon in the making. And when you combine a cultural phenomenon with one of the most powerful personal brands in the history of sport, the commercial possibilities become virtually limitless. Whispers began circulating through the tennis world's inner circles. Something was being assembled, something that nobody had attempted before, a cross-gender, cross-generational, cross-market alliance between the sport's greatest champion and its most exciting rising force. Those whispers became deafening very quickly. And then the announcement dropped, and the tennis world lost its collective mind. When the news broke, it did not trickle out through a leaked document or a speculative journalist. It arrived the way Djokovic has always operated, with deliberate intention and maximum impact. The partnership, as announced, sits at the intersection of three distinct commercial pillars. The first is Djokovic's SILA wellness brand, his supplement and performance nutrition line, developed over a decade of personal research, targeting a global audience hungry for science-backed health solutions. The second is the Southeast Asian and Filipino market, the fastest-growing tennis fan base on the planet, a demographic that Eala has activated almost single-handedly, and one that represents hundreds of millions of potential consumers for premium wellness and lifestyle products. The third is the Gen Z audience, the digital generation that follows Eala not just as a tennis player, but as a symbol of identity, heritage, and defiant ambition. Together, these three pillars represent something entirely new in professional tennis, a partnership built not on shared court time, but on shared commercial vision across continents, cultures, and generations. The reaction was immediate and volcanic.
In the Philippines, social media went into full eruption. Eala's name trended on X, Instagram, and TikTok simultaneously. Filipino fans, who had already demonstrated in Melbourne that they travel, they invest, and they show up, celebrated as if she had just won a Grand Slam. Because in the commercial world, this announcement carried a weight equivalent to exactly that. In Serbia and across Europe, Djokovic's fan base embraced the move as confirmation of what they had always believed, that Nole sees the board several moves ahead of everyone else. Tennis forums lit up. Sports business analysts published breakdowns within hours. Marketing executives began quietly calling their contacts, trying to understand the full scope of what had just been assembled. Coco Gauff's now viral comment that Eala was bringing a new demographic to the sport suddenly felt prophetic, because this partnership was the formalization of exactly that reality. Djokovic was not just acknowledging Eala's athletic merit, he was betting on the demographic revolution she represented with real money, real infrastructure, and his own name attached. The tennis world had never seen anything quite like it, and the sponsors, whose names were already printed on Eala's sleeve, were about to feel the temperature rise very, very quickly. Think this cannot get more dramatic? Hold on, because this is where it gets genuinely chaotic. Strip away the press releases. Remove the business language. Look underneath the surface of this partnership, and you will find something far more significant than a commercial agreement between two tennis players. Novak Djokovic is 38 years old. He won his 100th ATP Tour title at the Geneva Open in 2025, a milestone that put him within striking distance of Jimmy Connor's all-time record of 109. He holds a record 10 Australian Open titles. He has spent over 400 weeks at world number 1. He has won every Grand Slam multiple times. He has achieved a career Golden Slam and a career Super Slam, feats accomplished by virtually nobody else in the history of the sport. He is also a man who has spent the final years of his career building something that will outlast every trophy. SILA, Joe in the Juice, Quant Biores, an investment in French football club Le Mans alongside Formula One legends Felipe Massa and Kevin Magnussen. The Novak Djokovic Foundation, which has built 43 schools and supported nearly 20,000 children. A deliberate, methodical construction of a post-tennis legacy that will endure long after the last ball is struck. Djokovic himself explained his philosophy in a recent interview. Mental wellness is an area people are paying more attention to, and deservedly so, he said. You need to be physically, mentally, and emotionally stable to have a chance. That philosophy, performance as a holistic system, not merely a physical exercise, is the entire architecture of SILA. Now consider what Eala represents within that framework. She is not simply a talented young tennis player, she is the physical embodiment of the exact values SILA was built to project. Discipline across mind, body, and spirit, long-term commitment over short-term reward, performance derived from holistic well-being rather than raw power. At 17, she left everything familiar in the Philippines to train in Majorca. At 20, she is ranked world number 31. Her rise was not explosive by accident, it was methodical. Exactly the kind of story Djokovic has been telling about his own career for 15 years. The partnership is, at its deepest level, Djokovic handing Eala the commercial architecture he spent decades building and aligning it with the demographic explosion she is triggering. The Southeast Asian market represents the next great frontier of tennis's commercial expansion. Eala unlocks it. SILA gives it a premium vehicle. Djokovic's global credibility gives it institutional weight. And there is one more dimension that nobody is addressing directly. Women's tennis has historically received a fraction of the commercial investment directed toward the men's game, despite generating comparable viewership, comparable passion, and, in Eala's case, arguably superior cultural resonance. By aligning his personal brand with Eala's commercial trajectory, Djokovic is doing something that no male tennis icon has ever explicitly done, investing his own equity in the acceleration of women's tennis as a commercial property. That is not a sponsorship. That is a statement. One final chapter remains, and the question it leaves behind is the one that will define women's tennis for the next decade.
12 months ago, Alex Eala was ranked world number 140. Today, she is at number 31. She is seated at Indian Wells. She is building toward Miami, the tournament that ignited her entire trajectory 1 year prior. The clay season, Roland Garros, and the pursuit of the top 20 all lie ahead. The arc of her career is pointing straight at the summit. 12 months from now, where does this story end up? The partnership with Djokovic does not simply accelerate her commercial value, it reframes it entirely. She is no longer a promising young player with a heartwarming national story and a solid regional sponsor base. She is now a global commercial entity, backed by one of the most recognizable athlete brands in the world, positioned at the intersection of three of the most powerful market forces in modern sport: the wellness revolution, the Southeast Asian economic surge, and the Gen Z consumption shift. The brands that move quickly will capture extraordinary returns. The brands that hesitate will watch competitors claim territory they had years to secure and chose not to develop aggressively enough. For Djokovic, this partnership adds a final chapter to a legacy that was already complete by every conventional measure. 24 Grand Slams, 100 titles, every record that could be broken. But legacy is not only what you accumulate, it is what you build for others. And by placing his commercial infrastructure behind the most important young woman in tennis, Djokovic is writing a final paragraph that no trophy could ever provide. For women's tennis, the implications stretch far beyond one player and one partnership. For decades, the conversation around investment inequality in the sport has generated frustration, headlines, and very little structural change. Nike designs Sampaguita hair ties, Milo runs digital campaigns, Globe maintains a relationship that predates Eala's first professional match. These are meaningful gestures, but they remain gestures. What happens when the greatest male champion in the sport's history decides to commercially invest in a young woman's career with the full weight of his personal brand? What happens when that young woman represents a country that has never produced a tennis icon before and carries with her the emotional investment of over 115 million people? What happens when the Southeast Asian market, long underserved by tennis's commercial apparatus, suddenly has a figure who looks like them, sounds like them, and wins against the world's best? The answer is already visible. In Dubai, Filipino fans packed the Aviation Club Tennis Center night after night. In Melbourne, they brought flags and banners to practice sessions for a player who lost in the first round. They do not just watch Eala, they travel for her, they build shrines for her, they crash social media servers every time she wins. That is not a fan base, that is a movement. And Novak Djokovic just bet his commercial future on it. So here's the question this story leaves with you, and it is one worth genuinely debating in the comments. Is this partnership the moment women's tennis finally receives the commercial power it has always deserved? Or is this just two brilliant brands making a brilliant business decision, and the greater equality story is something the rest of us are projecting onto it? Leave your answer below, because this conversation is just beginning.
From a wild card at world number 140 to a seeded contender at world number 31 in 12 months. From a Philippine girl with big dreams in Mallorca to a global commercial figure aligned with the most decorated champion in tennis history. Eala did not ask for a seat at the table. She built her own, one win at a time, one ranking point at a time, one nation at a time. And now, the greatest of all time just pulled up a chair beside her. The sponsors are panicking. The brands are recalculating. The sport will never look quite the same again. If this story moved you, if you felt even one moment where your jaw dropped, then you already know this channel delivers tennis storytelling unlike anything else on YouTube. Subscribe. Hit the bell, because the next chapter of Eala's story is coming faster than anyone predicted, and you do not want to miss a single frame of it.